Imagine you're scrolling through your feed right now. You're just kind of zoning out at the end of a long day, and your thumb pauses on a short video for a new, like, low-sugar, high-carbonation energy drink.
Right, something with bright colors, really loud music.
Exactly. Maybe an influencer doing a backflip off a cliff into the ocean.
Yeah.
You might just think, it looks refreshing. Maybe you give it a double tap and you keep scrolling.
Yeah, you barely even think about it.
Right. But behind that single post, behind that fraction of a second you spent lingering on it, is an incredibly sophisticated computational engine.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just counting your like.
No, it's actively analyzing your click-through rate, your
Wow.
intent to buy, your geographic location, your demographic profile, even using natural language processing to gauge the overall sentiment of the comments you might be reading.
It's cross-referencing your pause time against millions of other users to predict your future purchasing behavior.
It's crazy. This isn't just a digital billboard. I mean, it's a massive, real-time global data collection machine disguised as entertainment.
Well, and the illusion of the feed is that it exists for our amusement, right? We view these platforms as personalized entertainment streams, just a way to pass the time.
Totally.
But if we flip the lens and look at this from a structural business perspective, that feed is a highly structured, meticulously monitored information system. Every tap, every micropause, they're all behavioral data points.
And that data point is immediately fed into a much larger predictive corporate strategy.
Yeah.
Which is, exactly what we're tearing the hood off of today. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Happy to be here.
Today, we're pulling our insights from Module 8 of Connect Master, Management Information Systems by Richard Tedmon and Casey Wilhelm. That's the 2026 McGraw-Hill edition. Our mission today is to figure out how businesses transition from simply posting pretty pictures to actually harnessing this global surveillance engine.
And to really ground this conversation, we kind of got to bridge this back to the concepts we explored in our previous deep dive into Module 7, which focused entirely on business management systems.
Oh, right. The one where we spent a lot of time analyzing things like human resource management systems, CRMs, business process management tools.
Yeah. The core theme there was how organizations utilize complex software architecture to manage immense amounts of data just to stay competitive.
That previous discussion was really all about the plumbing, right? The databases, the infrastructure, the predictive analytics tools sitting inside the company's headquarters.
Exactly. But plumbing is useless if you don't have water flowing through it.
That's the perfect analogy for where we are heading today.
If Module 7 was about the internal systems that manage big data, this deep dive explores one of the most explosive external sources of that data today. Social media is the ocean feeding those pipes.
It's the real-time input mechanism that populates those CRMs with actionable intelligence, right?
Precisely. Without it, those predictive analytics tools are starved of the behavioral inputs they need to function.
So before we completely submerge ourselves in this ocean, just a quick reminder for you listening. If you're finding value in how we unpack these systems, take a second to like, subscribe, follow, and share this with anyone in your network.
And definitely leave a comment down below. We actually read them, and it really helps keep this conversation evolving.
For sure. So let's start at the absolute foundation. When I hear the phrase social media, my brain immediately defaults to, the app icon on my phone.
Right. Naturally.
But the textbook uses a very specific, formal term, a social media information system, or SMIs. What fundamentally separates an app from an SMIs?
Well, the distinction comes down to structure and purpose. I mean, an app is just a piece of software. A social media information system is a comprehensive, multi-layered framework.
Okay.
It's designed to support the sharing of content among a network of users, specifically to achieve organizational goals. It's an ecosystem built on 3 distinct roles:
Which are?
the providers, the sponsors, and the communities.
Let's break those apart. The providers seem fairly obvious. We're talking about the tech giants, right?
Yeah.
Alphabet, Meta, X.
Correct. The providers are the platform creators and maintainers. Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, TikTok. They build the arena.
Right.
They provide the underlying infrastructure, the massive cloud servers, the content delivery networks, proprietary algorithms, and the terms of service.
So they build the arena, and then we have the sponsors. Now, my initial thought when I hear sponsors is like a brand paying $10,000 for a banner ad. Is it just the advertisers?
That's a common and honestly a very limiting misconception. In the architecture of an SMIS, a sponsor isn't defined by their ad spend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a sponsor is any organization, business, or formal entity that maintains a deliberate presence on one or more of these platforms to achieve a goal.
So wait, to put this in perspective, if there's a tiny independent local bookstore that just runs a free Facebook page to say, hey, we got new books, and they've never spent a single penny on ads, are they technically a sponsor?
They are absolutely a sponsor, because the underlying mechanism here is an exchange of value.
Okay, how so?
Even if the bookstore isn't paying Facebook in currency, they are providing Facebook with highly localized content and user engagement data. By operating that page strategically, they're utilizing the SMIS as a business tool.
So they are an active, strategic participant, a sponsor, rather than just a passive consumer.
Exactly. Which brings us to the most abundant role, the communities.
That would be the passive consumers, right?
Yep.
You, me, and the billions of registered users scrolling through the feed.
Yep. The communities form the massive global user base. It's the network of interpersonal relationships.
Got it.
But to truly understand how these three roles interact, we got to look under the hood at the 5 fundamental components that make up any information system.
Right, the 5 components, let's list those.
When you apply them to social media, you see the machinery. They are hardware, software, data, procedures, and people.
I really want to spend some time on this framework because it kind of completely changes how you view a platform. Let's start with hardware. We aren't just talking about a server in a closet.
No, we are talking about planetary scale infrastructure, hyperscale data centers, facilities spanning millions of square feet.
Wow.
Yeah, filled with tens of thousands of servers, requiring dedicated power substations and massive cooling infrastructure. That's the hardware required to process billions of simultaneous video streams in real time.
But the SMIS doesn't end at the data center door.
Yeah.
Right? The system literally requires my physical device to function.
Precisely. The user communities represent the other half of the hardware equation. Your smartphone, your laptop, even your smartwatch, they are the edge nodes of the network.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
If the user hardware stops working, the whole SMIS collapses.
Just as surely as if a data center lost power.
Okay, moving to software.
On the provider side, the software is incredibly complex. It's the user interface, sure, but more importantly, it's the database management systems running in the background.
The algorithms?
Exactly. The proprietary algorithms dictating content recommendation, the machine learning models analyzing behavior, and the analytics dashboards for the sponsors.
And on the community side, the software is just the conduit. Like it's just the Safari browser on my laptop or the iOS app I downloaded.
Yes. The hardware and software are the physical and digital containers. But what flows through those containers is what gives the system its value data.
And the source material draws a very sharp, crucial distinction between 2 categories of data here. We have content data and we have connection data.
Right.
Let's pull these apart because I think this is where the real paradigm shift happens for a business professional. Content data seems pretty straightforward. It's the actual media.
It is exactly that. It consists of the data and the responses contributed by the users. When our independent bookstore uploads a photo of a new display window, that JPEG file is content data.
Or when a customer leaves a comment saying, I can't wait to read that.
Yes, the text of that comment is content data. It's the visible substance of the platform.
Okay, so if content data is the what, then what exactly is connection data? Because the textbook places a massive emphasis on it.
Connection data is the invisible relational web. It is the data created from connections and relationships to site content and to other sources. It's the structural map of the network.
I think the best analogy here is a detective's corkboard.
Oh.
Yeah, the content data are the photos of the suspects pinned to the board. But the connection data is the red string connecting them all together.
That is an exceptional visualization. To push that analogy further, in modern social media, the red string is actually way more valuable than the photographs.
Wait, really? More valuable?
Absolutely. Connection data is the fact that user A follows the bookstore. It's the fact that user A is also friends with user B, who doesn't follow the bookstore but frequently buys from a coffee shop next door.
Ah, I see.
By analyzing the red string, the connection data, the SMIS, can deduce relationship strength, influence mapping, and shared interests. This is the foundation of network effects.
So providers are responsible for delivering both the photos and the red string. And they are also responsible for the 4th component, procedures.
Procedures are the rules of engagement. Providers establish the governance models, they write the algorithms that dictate how data is collected, they design security protocols, and enforce the terms of service.
Their procedure is basically to keep the machine running and legally compliant.
Exactly.
And as a community member or even a sponsor, my procedure is essentially compliance. I got to manage my own password security, ensure my content doesn't violate guidelines, and operate within their interface.
Which naturally leads to the fifth and final component, people.
Right, because an information system is inert without human agency.
Exactly. Providers hire thousands of engineers, content moderators, and executives. Sponsors hire marketing directors and data analysts. And the communities are made up of the billions of everyday individuals generating the raw behavioral data.
Let's run a quick diagnostic check on this whole framework just to solidify it.
Sure.
Let's say I run a company manufacturing ultra-lightweight camping tents. I post a high-definition video of a tent surviving a massive windstorm. That video file is content data, right?
Correct.
You, the listener, tag your hiking partner in the comments. That tag generates connection data, establishing a relationship node between you two. All of this is stored on the provider's massive server farms, which is hardware, and routed through their database management system, the software. The guidelines that ensure my video isn't taken down are the procedures, and my marketing team analyzing your comment represents the people.
When you synthesize it like that, it becomes glaringly obvious why business professionals can't treat social media as an afterthought.
No kidding.
It is not merely a promotional channel, it is a structured, continuous, real-time market research facility.
So if we understand the architecture of the system, the next logical hurdle is understanding how a business actually extracts answers from it. The source material outlines a formal, 5-step process for market research data collection.
And honestly, when you look at this process through the lens of an SMIS, you realize that the traditional market research model is entirely obsolete.
You mean the one where you pay 20 people to sit in a conference room with a two-way mirror and eat stale donuts while filling out a survey?
Yeah, that one. The problem with the two-way mirror focus group is that it suffers from massive friction. It's slow, geographically limited, prohibitively expensive, and most crucially, it relies on self-reported data.
People in focus groups just say what they think the moderator wants to hear, right?
Exactly. Social media platforms, conversely, provide revealed preference data. They track what people actually do when they think no one is watching.
That's a huge difference.
They offer a continuous fire hose of demographic data layered over real-time interaction data. The scale and speed are unprecedented.
Let's walk through the textbook's 5-step framework and apply it to a deeply specific scenario. Step 1 is define the problem or opportunity. Step 2 is develop a plan. Step 3 is collect the data. Step 4 is analyze that data. And Step 5 is put the research into action.
Let's utilize the beverage brand example from the text, but let's expand the mechanics of it. Imagine you're the marketing director for a mid-sized beverage company. You have a hypothesis that there's an untapped market for a new, highly carbonated, low-sugar energy drink.
Okay, so Step 1, define the opportunity. We aren't just guessing here. We need to determine if we should launch this drink targeting the 18 to 34-year-old demographic. We need to find potential demand, optimal price, and core messaging.
Moving to Step 2, develop a plan. 10 years ago, your plan would involve hiring a polling firm for 6 months. Today, your plan revolves entirely around your SIS ecosystem.
So you decide to use Instagram and TikTok as your primary data collection nodes.
Yes. You plan to run a highly targeted ABC ad test using 3 distinct visual concepts. You deploy a short in-feed survey and determine your key metrics like click-through rate, sentiment, and intent to buy.
I really want to pause on click-through rate, or CTR, because it's a metric that sounds simple but has a lot of nuance. Broadly, CTR is the percentage of people who saw the ad and actually clicked the link. But let's debate the limitations of this. If I have a super high CTR, does that automatically mean my ad is a massive success?
That is a highly sophisticated pushback, and the answer is no.
Really? Why not?
Because a high CTR indicates high engagement, but engagement isn't always positive. If your ad features a controversial claim, people might click it out of morbid curiosity or outrage, not because they want to buy a low-sugar energy drink.
Oh, that makes sense. Like hate clicking.
Exactly. Furthermore, in the age of automated web traffic, a sudden spike in CTR could just be bot activity. Therefore, CTR must always be cross-referenced with downstream metrics like time spent on the landing page to validate the quality of the click.
Right. A click is just a knock on the door. It doesn't mean they bought the house. So the plan is set. Step 3, collect the data. We actually execute.
Right. We push the 3 distinct video reels into the feed. Let's say concept A focuses on the health benefits. Concept B focuses on extreme sports. Concept C focuses on late-night studying.
We put a budget behind them to guarantee they hit that 18 to 34 demographic. We deploy the polls, and we activate social listening tools to monitor if anyone is comparing us to Red Bull or Celsius.
Which leads to step 4, analyze the data. The SMA app provides the analytics dashboards to process the results in real time. And let's say the data reveals a clear narrative.
Okay, what does it say?
Concept A, the health-focused ad, had high impressions but a dismal click-through rate. They ignored it. Concept C, the studying ad, had a moderate CTR, but the sentiment analysis flagged a highly negative reaction. Users found the music annoying.
But concept B, the extreme sports ad. Let's say concept B is the undeniable winner. The dashboard shows it achieved the highest CTR by a wide margin. The NLP sentiment analysis categorizes 85% of the comments as overwhelmingly positive.
Exactly. Furthermore, the embedded survey data indicates a strong trial intent, and the pricing questions reveal that the demographic sweet spot for purchasing is between $2.60 and $2.79 per can. Any higher, and intent drops off a cliff.
Which brings us to the culmination, step 5. Put the research into action. You aren't operating on a hunch anymore. You have statistically significant behavioral data derived directly from your target market.
You greenlight a regional pilot launch for the energy drink, utilizing the visual aesthetic of Concept B, and mandate a retail price point of $2.69.
The efficiency of that is just staggering. You bypass the theoretical focus group completely. Yeah. But this entire strategy hinges on one critical dependency. You have to run the test in the right digital environment.
The environment is everything.
Right. If we ran that energy drink test on a platform where the average user is 65 years old, the data would tell us the product is a complete failure.
A business professional must map their target demographic to the precise platform that houses that demographic. If you fish in the wrong pond, your bait doesn't matter.
Which necessitates a deep understanding of platform-specific data analysis. The source material highlights the big four, and we need to examine their scale and their specific analytical tools.
Let's start with the absolute leviathan in the room, Facebook. The scale of this platform is almost difficult to wrap your head around. The text notes they maintain over 3.07 billion monthly active users and 2.11 billion daily active users.
Nearly a third of the human population interacts with this specific digital infrastructure every single day. The volume of behavioral data generated every 24 hours is incomprehensible.
It is. And for organizations, Facebook's primary value lies in a tool called Audience Insights.
Audience Insights is essentially the ultimate demographic directory on steroids, right? It dissects geography, language, relationship status, education level, and incredibly purchase behavior.
The purchase behavior integration is the critical differentiator. Facebook doesn't just know what pages you like. Through integrations with third-party data brokers, they often know what categories of products you spend your disposable income on.
Wow, that's powerful.
Audience Insights allows a sponsor to view this aggregated data for the general population or apply a filter to analyze only the people already connected to their specific page. It allows for hyper-granular local and global targeting.
Okay, shifting gears to Instagram, the aesthetic sibling. Instagram has over 1.1 billion active users. But the vital metric here isn't just the total number, it's the demographic skew. Nearly 3/4 of all Instagram users are under the age of 35.
If your target market is Gen Z or younger millennials, Instagram is a mandatory operational environment, and the analytics environment here is provided through Instagram Insights.
How does that differ from Facebook's tools?
While Facebook focuses heavily on deep demographic data, Instagram Insights is heavily indexed toward content interaction and visual performance. It shows you exactly which stories your audience tapped through, which reels they rewatched, and the breakdown of reach versus impressions.
I really want to clarify reach versus impressions, because this is a fundamental concept that trips up a lot of marketing teams. Reach is the head count at the party. Impressions is how many times they walked past the buffet.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. To be precise, reach is the number of unique individual accounts that were exposed to your post. Impressions is the total cumulative number of times your content was displayed on a screen, regardless of who was looking at it.
So if I'm scrolling and I see your ad, and then later that day I open the app and see your ad again, and then my friend sends it to me in the DM and I look at it a third time, that generates a reach of 1 but 3 impressions.
Exactly. And understanding the ratio between those two metrics tells a vital story.
What does it tell you?
If your impressions are vastly higher than your reach, it means a small, localized group of people are viewing your content repeatedly. That could mean your content is highly engaging to a niche audience, or it could mean your algorithm is stuck in an echo chamber.
And if your reach is growing steadily.
It means the algorithmic software is actively pushing your content to new, unique user nodes.
Okay, moving on to X, formerly known as Twitter. X has a smaller footprint, roughly 650 million monthly active users, but its unique value proposition is the velocity of its information and the psychology of its user base.
Over 60% of users report visiting X specifically for news. The average user spends 28 minutes a day immersed in the platform.
It's the real-time pulse of the internet. It's not about polished aesthetics. It's about text-based velocity and cultural friction.
For sponsors, X provides a suite of deeply analytical tools. The account home functions as an overarching report card, summarizing month-to-month statistics. The post activity dashboard provides granular metrics on a per-post basis: views, reposts, quote posts, likes, and replies.
But the tool I find most fascinating on X is the Video Activity Dashboard, or the VAD. Specifically, the fact that it measures retention rates. It literally maps out the exact second where a user got bored and scrolled past your video.
It is a ruthless, uncompromising metric. I often compare the retention algorithm to a highly impatient librarian.
An impatient librarian. I love that.
Yeah. If you hand the librarian a book and the first 3 pages don't immediately capture their attention, they don't just put it back on the shelf, they throw it in the incinerator. The VAD shows you exactly where the incinerator activates.
So if 80% of your audience drops off at the 4-second mark, you know definitively that your visual hook is failing.
Absolutely. For organizations running paid campaigns, X also offers a campaign dashboard to monitor cost per result, and conversion tracking, which uses pixel technology to measure what a user does on your external website after they view your ad on X.
Finally, we arrive at YouTube. And the statistics here defy logic. 2.5 billion monthly active users. 43 billion monthly organic traffic hits, over 125 million paid premium subscribers.
The geographic penetration is astounding. 253 million users in the US alone, and nearly 491 million users in India. And they're spending an average of 48 minutes a day on the platform.
YouTube operates on a completely different paradigm than X or Instagram. It's a long-form, search-driven environment. It's the second largest search engine in the world, owned by the largest search engine in the world.
The analytics suite, YouTube Studio, reflects this. The Overview tab provides the macro summary, but the granular insights are found in the Reach tab, which heavily emphasizes click-through rate on your video thumbnails.
And the Engagement tab. But on YouTube, engagement isn't just about a like or a comment. It's obsessively focused on watch time and average view duration. If X is the impatient librarian, YouTube is the marathon judge.
Precisely. YouTube's algorithm prioritizes session time. If your video keeps a user on the platform for 20 minutes, the algorithm will reward you with massive organic distribution. If your video causes them to close the app after 30 seconds, your reach will be severely throttled.
So, synthesizing all of this, why does a deep understanding of these 4 platforms matter to someone in management or business operations?
It matters because capital allocation requires precision. Let's create a comparative scenario. Consider a regional residential landscaping business versus a sports equipment brand launching a highly technical, expensive line of winter ski jackets.
The SMIS strategy for those 2 organizations should share absolutely no overlap. The landscaping business operates with extreme geographic constraints. Their target audience is homeowners, who generally skew slightly older and who possess a specific level of disposable income.
Right. If you run that landscaping company in Dallas, Texas, you do not care if a 19-year-old in London thinks your lawn stripes look amazing on TikTok. You cannot monetize that attention.
So my strategy is going to aggressively leverage Facebook's audience insights. I'm going to buy ads targeted exclusively at a 30-mile radius around my office, filtering for users aged 35 to 65, filtering for homeowners. I'm using the SMIS as a hyper-local sniper rifle.
Conversely, look at the sports equipment brands selling ski jackets. Their market is not geographically locked to one city. It is tied to climate, travel habits, and psychographics.
Their audience is likely highly active, experience-driven, and younger. Given that 75% of Instagram's user base is under 35, that platform becomes the primary staging ground.
You would leverage Instagram Insights to track visual engagement, you would optimize for aesthetic high adrenaline reels, and you would deploy influencer partnerships in the winter sports niche. The demographic data is still vital, but the platform architecture and content strategy are entirely distinct.
This entire comparative exercise hinges on one foundational concept: understanding the human being on the other side of the screen, which transitions us perfectly into the mechanics of consumer behavior and target marketing. The textbook defines consumer behavior as the formal study of how and why people buy and use goods or services.
And we have to recognize the scale at which this study is now occurring. The source text establishes that there are 6.04 billion global internet users. That represents over 73% of the total human population.
Wow.
Out of that massive pool, 5.66 billion are active social media users.
That is essentially the entire addressable consumer market of the industrialized world, congregating in a handful of digital spaces. It's unprecedented in human history.
It is. And modern businesses do not attempt to understand this behavior by simply asking questions. They measure it using sophisticated listening and monitoring platforms integrated into the SMIS.
They transition from passive observation to active behavioral tracking. They analyze sentiment clusters, they benchmark against competitors in real time, they identify emerging friction points.
Like a sudden spike in comments complaining about a confusing checkout process on a website.
Exactly. The implication here is that target marketing has fundamentally evolved.
Yeah.
It isn't just defining a broad demographic segment anymore. It isn't saying our target market is women between 25 and 40. That's archaic.
Completely archaic. Target marketing today is defining a highly specific cohort based on an intersection of demographics and real-time behavioral data that proves they are statistically likely to be interested in your specific solution.
Let's complicate that a bit, because you're hitting on the core evolution of marketing. A modern target marketing message isn't a billboard on a highway hoping the right demographic drives by.
Right. A modern target marketing message is a dynamically generated video specifically crafted for a 28-year-old software engineer living in Austin, Texas, who recently purchased trail running shoes, frequently watches YouTube videos about ultramarathons, and whose sentiment analysis indicates a preference for eco-friendly brands.
It's just wild. That level of psychographic profiling is achieved by aggregating point-of-sale data, third-party broker data, and the relentless stream of connection data provided by the SMIS. It is precision engineering applied to human desire.
But having access to all that consumer behavior data is overwhelming. If a business just logs on and starts randomly posting content based on thousands of data points, they're going to drown in the noise.
How does an organization actually build a blueprint to capture that specific buyer?
They need a structural framework. They need a systematic approach to translate that raw data into business value. This brings us to the formal 6-step process for creating a social media information systems strategy outlined in the source material.
Skipping these steps is why most corporate social media accounts fail to generate actual revenue, I imagine. Let's pull the blueprint apart. Step 1. Develop goals. This feels almost too obvious to state, but the text makes a critical distinction. Social media goals must explicitly align with overarching organizational goals.
You aren't operating an SROs to get likes. A like doesn't meet payroll. You operate an SMIs to increase brand awareness, to drive targeted website traffic, to boost user engagement, or ultimately to increase conversion rates.
Which means getting a user to actually purchase the product or sign up for the service.
And a goal without a measurement is just a wish. This necessitates step 2, set metrics. Organizations must establish quantifiable key performance indicators, or KPIs.
If the goal from step 1 is brand awareness, the KPIs might be audience growth rate and weekly follower counts. But if the goal is revenue generation, follower counts become a vanity metric.
Instead, the KPIs shift to visitor frequency, click-through rates on product links, and actual sales conversion rates.
Step 3 is identify target market, which we just explored deeply, using age, income, education, and behavioral data to match the audience to the correct provider platform. But Step 4 is where I think the entire modern digital economy lives or dies. Step 4 is define value.
This is arguably the most crucial conceptual leap in the entire module. Organizations must determine exactly what their target market values about their specific product or service, and then engineer their entire SMIS presence to highlight that value.
The textbook introduces a profound dichotomy here: the difference between fundamental value and total value. Let's spend some real time analyzing this because it explains so much about modern brand loyalty. Fundamental value is utilitarian. It focuses exclusively on the core function of the product or service itself. If I buy a heavy winter jacket, The fundamental value is that it is waterproof and it prevents me from freezing.
Right. The fundamental value is the baseline requirement for the transaction. If the jacket doesn't keep you warm, it fails. But total value expands significantly beyond utility.
That's so.
Total value incorporates the product, but overlays it with intangible assets: social awareness, philanthropic initiatives, transparent manufacturing processes, exceptional warranties, and customer service.
Okay, so the jacket keeps you warm, but the total value proposition is that it keeps you warm. It was manufactured using 100% recycled ocean plastics in a fair trade certified facility, and it includes a lifetime repair guarantee to reduce landfill waste.
Precisely.
Okay, I had to push back on this because this sounds great in a corporate mission statement, but does it actually reflect economic reality? Does a company's social awareness or fair trade manufacturing actually drive clicks and purchases at scale? When it's freezing outside and I need a jacket, I just want a jacket. Is total value really a mandatory component of an SMI strategy, or is it just a luxury branding exercise for expensive companies?
That is the essential friction point of modern commerce, and the data overwhelmingly suggests that total value is no longer a luxury. It is the primary differentiator.
Really? The primary one.
We exist in a hyper-globalized market where supply chains are incredibly democratized. I can find 50 companies selling a waterproof jacket with identical fundamental value on Amazon right now. Fundamental value is commoditized.
Oh, that makes sense.
Therefore, the only way a brand can command a premium price and foster genuine loyalty, especially among the younger demographics dominating platforms like Instagram and TikTok, is by aligning with the consumer's personal identity. Modern consumers demand that their purchases reflect their own values.
So if a consumer is deeply concerned about environmental sustainability, and a brand architects its SMIS content to transparently showcase its eco-friendly manufacturing, that total value converts the user from a passive scroller into a brand advocate.
Exactly.
That is a phenomenal point. Because fundamental value is commoditized, you are no longer competing on the product. You are competing on the narrative surrounding the product.
Yeah.
The SMIS isn't selling the jacket, it's selling the total value identity.
Exactly. And once that value is defined, you move to step 5. Make connections. This is the execution phase. You operationalize the total value by creating engaging, platform-specific content. You maintain those connections with a disciplined, regular posting cadence.
You got to build a bridge to the consumer. And you aggressively drive traffic by amplifying the best organic content with paid advertising and strategic incentives.
And finally, step 6. Gather and analyze data. You utilize the platform analytics we discussed earlier or integrate third-party consultant software to relentlessly measure your KPIs against your goals and refine the strategy.
This 6-step process isn't a linear path. It's a continuous feedback loop. If you skip steps, say, a company panics about low sales and jumps straight to step 5, blasting out discount codes without ever taking step 4 to define their FEMI-TOM. Total value, their campaigns will inevitably collapse because they have no structural foundation.
It functions as a complete system, and biological or digital systems require every component to function in harmony. However, as organizations implement the system effectively, they encounter a massive scalability problem.
Which is?
A successful SMIS generates an avalanche of data, analyzing millions of comments, tracking millions of behavioral nodes, and optimizing thousands of ad variations in real time is computationally impossible for a human marketing team.
Which brings us to the final and frankly the most mind-bending section of this deep dive. The impact of artificial intelligence in social media. Because the human brain literally cannot process the volume of connection data an SMIS produces, we have handed the analytical reins over to machine learning. Let's start with AI-assisted social listening.
To contextualize this, basic social listening is just setting up a Google alert for your brand name. It's keyword monitoring. AI-assisted social listening fundamentally alters the paradigm.
It utilizes natural language processing, or NLP, to deeply analyze unstructured text, right?
Yes. The AI doesn't just scan for the brand name. It parses the sentence structure, the proximity of adjectives to the brand, and the contextual slang to detect the tone, the underlying emotion, and the objective of the post.
Let's map how that actually works. If 10,000 people are tweeting about our new energy drink, the NLP algorithm isn't just generating a pie chart of how many times the word drink was used. It understands context. It knows the difference between a tweet that says, "This drink is sick," meaning it's amazing, versus "This drink made me sick," meaning it caused food poisoning.
Precisely. It untangles the nuances of human communication, including sarcasm, which historically broke older algorithms. By processing this at scale, the AI generates real-time reports identifying emerging PR crises hours before a human analyst would spot the trend.
That is a superpower for a PR team. But where AI shifts from defensive monitoring to offensive revenue generation is in predictive audience targeting.
This is where we leave traditional demographics behind and enter the realm of behavioral clustering and machine learning algorithms. Traditional targeting is historical. It targets who you were or what you did. Predictive targeting analyzes millions of micro signals to forecast what you were going to do. It calculates the probability of future action.
The textbook explicitly mentions that this often starts by integrating an organization's internal CRM data with the SMIS to execute lookalike modeling. How does the math of that actually function in practice?
Imagine your CRM contains the profiles of your 5,000 most profitable loyal customers. You securely upload those profiles to the provider's SMIS, say Facebook. The machine learning algorithm analyzes those 5,000 people and identifies thousands of hidden behavioral correlations.
Okay, like what kind of correlations?
It notes that your best customers all tend to scroll slowly past travel videos, they generally engage with posts between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m., and they share a specific set of obscure connection data. The AI creates a multidimensional cluster map of that ideal buyer.
And then it just goes hunting for that exact profile.
Exactly. It deploys across the billions of users on the platform to find 500,000 new people who possess that exact same behavioral cluster. Even if they live in different countries or belong to different demographic age brackets, it finds the hidden patterns of intent.
It is identifying your perfect customer based on digital body language that a human could never perceive. And this exact same pattern recognition technology is currently revolutionizing influencer discovery and ROI calculations.
The old model of influencer marketing was incredibly rudimentary. A brand would manually scroll through Instagram, find someone with 2 million followers, and pay them $50,000 to hold a product, hoping their followers cared. It was highly inefficient and suffered from massive fraud regarding fake followers.
Today, AI-assisted influencer discovery utilizes NLP and behavioral clustering to analyze the actual engagement depth of an influencer's audience. It ensures that the influencer's network graph perfectly aligns with the organization's target demographic. It prioritizes relevance over sheer volume.
And beyond discovery, AI solves the most persistent problem in influencer marketing, calculating the return on investment. Human behavior is non-linear. If you see an influencer post about a jacket on Tuesday, you rarely click the link and buy it instantly.
Right, you might Google a brand on Thursday, visit their website on Saturday, and finally purchase it the following Monday via retargeting ad. Tracking that journey manually is impossible.
Which is why organizations now deploy AI multi-touch attribution models. The machine learning algorithms track that fragmented cross-platform journey. They assign fractional value to the initial influencer post that created the awareness, the search engine that facilitated the interest, and the ad that drove the conversion.
It finally provides executives with a mathematically defensible ROI for their influencer campaigns. We have spent this entire deep dive marveling at the sheer efficiency and predictive power of these systems. AI acts as this incredible accelerant for targeted marketing. But the module concludes on a profoundly concerning note, because the same technology that allows an algorithm to predict human behavior is now being used to fabricate human reality. Let's talk about synthetic media and deepfakes.
This represents an existential security threat that every business professional must understand. Synthetic media is a broad category encompassing any image, video, audio, or text that is generated or significantly modified by artificial intelligence. Deepfakes are the most malicious subset of this technology.
They utilize deep learning, specifically generative adversarial networks, to fabricate highly realistic audio or video files, making real people appear to say or do things they never actually did. We've all seen the relatively harmless versions of this, a celebrity's face seamlessly grafted onto a character in a movie they never starred in.
Yes, but when you apply this technology to the corporate landscape, the risk profile is catastrophic. We are talking about corporate defamation, market manipulation, and sophisticated fraud. Imagine the financial damage if a highly realistic deepfake video of a Fortune 500 CEO casually mentioning that their company was about to declare bankruptcy was released on X.
Oh man, the algorithmic trading bots would tank the stock price by billions of dollars before the human PR team could even issue a denial.
That scenario is not hypothetical. It is the current reality of the threat landscape. The speed at which deepfakes can spread across an SMIS necessitates an equally fast defense. Ironically, the only entity fast enough to detect malicious AI is a defensive AI. Organizations are deploying AI detection models that function as a forensic shield.
What exactly is the defensive AI looking for?
It primarily focuses on three areas. The first is visual artifacts and spatial inconsistencies. Generative AI models, despite their sophistication, still struggle with complex physics. The detection AI is trained to spot unnatural shadows, improper lighting reflections in the corneas of the eyes, or the blurring of edges where the synthetic face blends with the original geometry of the head.
The source material also explicitly calls out temporal inconsistencies. Break down the mechanics of that.
Temporal inconsistencies relate to the flow of time and movement across multiple frames of a video. An AI might generate a single perfect image, but maintaining that perfection at 60 frames per second is immensely difficult. The defensive AI analyzes the pixel flow from frame to frame.
It looks for micro glitches in body mechanics, unnatural blinking cadences, or bad lip sync where the audio phones don't mathematically match the muscle movements of the generated mouth.
Exactly. It's looking for the digital seams in the video. And finally, it analyzes the metadata.
Metadata is the invisible structural data attached to the file itself, the timestamps, the hardware encoding signatures, digital watermarks, or the specific software protocols used to compress the file, right?
Yes. The AI can rapidly extract the metadata of a viral video and compare it against the expected metadata of a legitimate recording to determine its authenticity. Thus, artificial intelligence has become an arms race. It is simultaneously the greatest threat to corporate integrity and the mandatory defense mechanism against sabotage.
Wow. We have traversed a massive amount of intellectual territory today. We started by defining the foundational architecture of the social media information system, understanding the intricate dance between providers, sponsors, and communities, and mapping the hardware, software, and critical connection data that powers it. We analyzed how this infrastructure has completely replaced traditional market research.
And we explored the distinct behavioral environments of Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube, outlining that rigorous six-step process for building a strategy.
Right, debating the critical evolution from fundamental to total value. And finally, we explored the bleeding edge, examining how AI is weaponized for both predictive targeting and digital deception.
If there is a singular unifying thesis to all of this, it is that social media has ceased to be a simple communication novelty. It has evolved into the central nervous system of modern digital commerce, consumer intelligence, and corporate security. Understanding its mechanics is no longer optional for a business professional. It is a fundamental requirement for survival.
Thank you so much for joining us for this extensive exploration of Module 8. As always, if this analysis helped clarify these systems for you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, follow, and share this deep dive with your colleagues or classmates. And we have a highly specific question we want you to debate in the comments below.
Yes, I want you to reflect on Step 4 of the SMI strategy process, defining value. I want you to deconstruct a recent purchase you made directly through a social media advertisement. When you click that buy button, were you driven purely by the utilitarian fundamental value of the product, what it physically does? Or did the brand successfully engineer a total value proposition, leveraging their social awareness, their aesthetic identity, or their manufacturing transparency that actually pushed you over the edge to make the purchase? Let us know your specific examples down in the comments.
I can't wait to read those. And next time, we're heading into Module 9, Ethics and Privacy Concerns. Because after spending this entire deep dive marveling at the incredible predictive power of data tracking, AI lookalike modeling, and real-time behavioral surveillance, it forces us to confront a massive, looming question. Just because businesses possess the technology to know absolutely everything about you, does that mean they should? We will explore the fallout of that question in the next deep dive. See you then.